Alright, we're going to be starting a new series on the channel for the off season. I don't know what to call it yet. It's just going to be right now free agency profile with the date numbers. I plan to do this series 2 times a day, 5 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Obviously, it'll be like the most probably consistent I'll ever upload during the off season, especially. But I'm going to do it because we need as much help as we can get on that defensive line, assuming we don't trade for Myles Garrett. Um, and even though I do think we're going to address our edge needs in the draft, we still need to get some depth. And maybe we will do like elsewise. There is some decent edge players in this draft, and we're just going to be going to basically over everybody, every bigger name, and every decent depth piece through this free agency time all the way up to when the tampering period begins, which is March 10th, I believe. So around that Friday will probably be the last day that we make free agency videos, like, profile videos. But the first one we have, you'll probably be seeing this on a Wednesday. I'm pre-recording it on Tuesday. But the first guy we're going to be talking about is defensive end, breakout defensive end, Dante Fowler. Now, Dante Fowler, I wanted this guy last year. No Lions fan. I repeat, none. None. At least that does YouTube videos or content. That was going for Dante Fowler. I've always been a big fan of this guy. When he was in Dallas, especially when he was in Atlanta. I was a big fan with him under Dan Quinn everywhere where he's been. Even back to LA, I was a fan of him. Not quite Jacksonville because I wasn't into football like that at that time. I watched it, but I wasn't into it like that. But even back in LA, I was a big fan of him. This was probably his best overall season in his career, or second best. We got it. If we're not going to draft a defensive end, our first round pick, which is, if we don't do that, I'm going to lose my mind. There's so many good edges in this draft. You either trade back from your first round pick, get more value since we don't have a lot of value in this draft. You get more value by trading back to select the defensive end with still your first round, with your second round pick or whatever you use to trade back. Or whatever, but with your first pick, if it's a first round pick, second round pick, whatever you do to trade back, if you do that, it needs to be a defensive end. It has to be. Don't care if it's Mike Green, Jack Straw, I don't care who it is. It needs to be a defensive end. But if for some reason Brad Holmes does not do that, Dante Fowler is one of the number one guys I would target. Always been a fan of the guys. To go over his stats, he is 6'3", 261, decent size, 30 years old. He'll be turning 31 a couple months before the season starts. From Florida, former third overall pick by the Jags in 2015. Don't know if he's lived up to the third overall pick. I'll say that. Big fan of the guy. Has not lived up to the third overall pick, but he's lived up close in my opinion. He's probably lived up to a first round pick for sure. He has honestly maybe lived up to a third round pick. I love Dante Fowler, man. His first career season had 4 sacks, not too bad. Second season had 8 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, 2 fumble recoveries. His third season, 2 sacks, forced fumble recovery. Then he went to the Rams, 2 sacks, forced fumble recovery. Then he probably had his best career season, 11.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a fumble recovery with the Rams. Then he signed with the Falcons, only had 3 sacks. Was on the Falcons again for another year. 4.5 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Then he went to Dallas in 22. 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles. Stayed in Dallas for 23. 4 sacks and a forced fumble. And then he signed with the Commanders this offseason to go with Dan Quinn in Washington. Had 10.5 sacks. Was the second best year. Had 10.5 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and also had a pick, his first career pick. And his first year as well, he had 5 passes defensed. I didn't realize that either. That's pretty high. So, Dante Fowler has been pretty good throughout his career, man. Pretty consistent. He averages between, I would say, like, on an average year for him, he averages around like 4 to 7 sacks. He's very consistent. I'm not saying, we're going to sign him and he's going to be this 10.5 sack guy that he was in Washington, or the 11.5 sack guy he was in 2019 with the Rams. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he's going to be a very good depth piece, a very good like third string edge rusher for us if we sign him. Very underrated defensive end. Always been very underrated even with Atlanta and Dallas. Like, he has been so underrated throughout his career. I don't understand why people have overlooked him. So this is why he's the number one target, because I've been talking about him for 2 years now. I don't know if I was like on him like that last year in my videos, but off air, off the videos, I was like that. Like that's how much of a guy how much of a fan I was of this guy. He was like one of my number one targets when everybody started going off the board in free agency, because he was one of the only ones remaining. Let's go. I believe he has a market value, so I'm gonna go ahead and take a look at his market value here. His market value is, wow. Marcus Davenport has market value. Can't wait to check at that. Dante Fowler does have a market value. All right, Dante Fowler. His market value is 3 years, $15.4 million. That's really 15.5, with an average of $5.2 million per season. Sign me up. This is a great deal for Dante Fowler. Even before, he signed a $3.5 million deal this past season with the Commanders. If he only gets $5 million again this year, and you're only going to raise the price by $2 million an average season, I do that every day. That's really cheap for a really underrated good edge rusher in Dante Fowler. So I'd 100% do that, especially if you'd have a guy like Davenport walk. And I just want to put this into conversation with Davenport, because I didn't even know Davenport had a market value. So let's take a look at Marcus Davenport's market value, since I haven't looked at it yet. We will talk about Marcus Davenport eventually, if we should bring him back or not. We'll go depth-wise, in detail. But I did not know Marcus Davenport had a market value. Wow! That's high. I'm just playing. It's high. It's very high. A whopping 1 year, $2.2 million. That is high, man. I'm just playing. That's not high at all. Wow, I didn't expect it to be that well. My prediction when the season immediately ended was to where Davenport would go and what the type of deal he would sign. I think he would sign around about a 1 year, $3.54 million deal. He is a very good edge rusher with the 5% of the time he is healthy. But the guy's going to continue going down in value until he can stay healthy, because the play is there, the health is not. But wow, if we could get him for a 1 year, $2.2 million deal, sign me up, man. That is really, really cheap for a guy one healthy 5% of the time. Really good edge rusher. So I just wanted to put that in perspective. So that's saying essentially Dante Fowler will make $3 million more per season than Davenport, with Fowler making $5 million a year. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So we have thoughts in the comments down below. Free agency profile day 1 and number 1, Dante Fowler. Would you consider signing him? Should Brian Holmes consider signing him? We have thoughts in the comments down below.